I'm Diane, Lindsay, and I write the back page on Family Tree magazine. I've just finished my talk on writing your life story in column inches, which is about what I've done. And someone's just said to me, I've been doing it for 19 years. I don't believe I'm that old, really. But it was a good talk. I think a lot of people have been inspired to write their family history, not as a book, but as very short bites, small pieces, even poems. And when I said I bet some of you write in secret, a lot of people look very shifty, so I think that's probably true. I've been writing little bits and pieces like this for years and years and years, and I write poetry about my family history, I write articles, I write stories, I put it into fiction. I don't fib with the facts, but I do put the facts at the end of a piece. And really that's what my whole life is about, because I also teach creative writing. Somebody just said after the talk, when I gave them some ways in, somebody just said to me, well, how will I start now? And I said, join a creative writing club or group or meeting, because half of my creative writing group are family history writers, and that they've all got better from knowing the skills of creative writing. I'll give you 3 tips that I think are the most important ones. First, if you're going to write your story, don't try to write a book, because you won't finish it. You're never going to finish your family history, really, so you're never going to write a book. And if you try to write every incident in a life, it would be very tedious. But tell it in your own voice. Don't use big words. Don't seek out big important phrases. Don't use 3 words if one would be better. And put speech in. You know, let people talk. If you've got diaries or letters or anything, pop that in. If your grandma and granddad used to go courting behind a tree, tell us what kind of tree it was. Don't just say they stood under a tree. They stood under an oak or a chestnut, and if you don't know, go and have a look. Imagine that you're telling it to somebody like us, and I've just spoken to a whole crowd of people, all of whom were sympathetic, all of whom laughed, because they know exactly where I was coming from. Writing is quite private, and it's very scary once you've left school, because you think somebody's going to come at you with a red pen, but they're not going to. And when I said that don't believe that nobody's interested because we're all nosy, there was a great gasp of agreement. So I think that's basically everybody's interested in everybody's family history. Don't fret too much about spelling and grammar, because you're not at school. This is number 2. Nobody is going to say, well, that's a very good story, but I don't like that adjective, or where's your semicolon, or what about your Oxford comma? Nobody's going to say that. And if you write just as you feel, just as you think, just as you tell it to somebody that you actually like, it will have much more life and vigour to it. And you can always get somebody to proofread it. It really doesn't matter. Write straight away from the heart, and the thing that matters is that you care about what you're writing about, and I know that you do. If there's a funny side, tell the funny side. If there's a sad bit, pace it and tell that bit, but space it apart. Don't tell it all in one go, and make sure there's a bit of a shape. One of the things I always do in an article, in a short piece, and even in a story, is I start where I came in, so I've gone round in a circle. Don't be afraid that you know your family history has got to have facts, because one of the things, of course it's got to have facts, and of course it's got to have 3 degrees of proof, but you can always put that afterwards. You can also always put an appendix. You've got your family tree, you've got your diagrams, you've got all of your certificates, but you don't need to include those as proof, because you're telling a story. That's what writing your family history is about. And if you try small bites, maybe you'll go on to the book that you're always meant to write. And I've got a nice little story to tell you, how I really broke down a brick wall. And it's all about serendipity, really, in family history. And often it'll turn into a story. People often say to me, nobody said it today, but people often say, where do you get your ideas from? Well, blimey, we've all got stories. We've got so many stories, we can't keep them together. This one is a story, a really treasured possession. I had an uncle who, when I was very, very small, he died after a cycling holiday. I remember him quite well. He died and he was only 16. Nobody in the family had a camera. Nobody had a picture of him. Nobody knew what he looked like. His name was Ray. This was when he was 15 and I was about 3. We had a tragic family beginning in that a grandma, a sister and an uncle all died in a very short time. And it was really important that we hadn't got any photographs. And when I started to teach family history about 20 years ago, I was talking to a class and there was one man in there who seemed to be a bit miserable. He didn't seem very interested. I'm not certain he didn't nod off at one point. But I was telling him this very story and I said about this, how sad it was that we hadn't got a picture, and he piped up, first time ever, I think I've got a photograph of Ray Veazey. And the next week this man came back and here is the photograph, here's the very photograph, and that is Uncle Ray. And it's the only photograph ever taken of him. And he's 15, just in that picture. And he died about a week later. So that's such a precious piece of memorabilia, if you like. But from that, I had to research the cycling club. I had to work out all the dates. I had to get the certificates out and make sure they worked. So it was a wonderful piece for a piece of writing. And the interesting thing is, once that gentleman had given me that photograph, he didn't come back again. So I'm not sure why he was there in the first place, and I often wonder whether he really was there, to be honest. I just wish he knew how much fun and joy he brought to me with that picture. And that's the kind of memory that you can put down in a small 680-word bite, which is all my articles are. And I reckon I've got about 1,000 articles, which I will never write the book, but I've got those put together.